What is the reality? Many of us, practically all, would answer by saying that reality is what we can see, touch, and experiment independently from the interacting human being. A chair is a chair for everyone, existing regardless of who is watching. This is as a human being generally conceives reality: unique, stable, accepted by everyone in the same way, external to himself, independent of his assessments, not influenceable, unless through an action involving sensory changes, and therefore perception, about the order or organization in which the constituting elements are assembling it. What may be experienced by anyone at any time and in the same way through the five senses is reality. Everything else does not exist. This is exactly the way in which the illusory prison of human beings is built and supported until it becomes a seemingly insurmountable prison. We shall not enter here into the merits of this claim, because a deepening of this topic would go well beyond the boundaries of this document. We will instead speak about the creation mechanism of the reality model shared by the vast majority of us, and how the opponent, with a masterpiece of strategy, uses it to his advantage. Our brain, but in general our whole body, is affected by a constant flow of information from outside, whatever that outside may be. According to our usual and shared model of reality, a model that we have learned and practiced for many years so insistent, it becomes an automatic process. Perception is filtered and processed in real time with our five senses in a magnificent and harmonious symphony, and the result is recomposed in our brain and interpreted by the surface mind to build the image of reality that then we use to interact with. The drawback is that it should not be the surface mind, but the deep mind having to make this interpretation, with the surface mind as an assistant, because one of the goals of the deep mind is just that: interpretation of the reality through a fluid and harmonious point of view with the energy that is reaching our field of consciousness. The surface mind is a wonderful gift. It aims to assist and support the deep mind, for example, by making available information related to past experiences in order to protect ourselves, or translating insights and thoughts from the realms of higher consciousness into verbal terms in precise projects, also including writing, arithmetic and math processing, which are tools available and congenial to it. Concepts that are expressed, for example, even in the teachings of Jewish Kabbalah. What happens instead? The surface mind puts itself between and performs a task not belonging to it and not able to do: the reality perception interpretation. How, therefore, is the reality assembled? Indeed, through the surface mind, but mainly through the tool routinely used by the surface mind when it's not in control: the inner conditional dialogue. As soon as the inner conditional dialogue, all at an astounding rate, interprets reality, is transforming it accordingly to a very simple scheme. If what is assembling is a repetition of a past experience, it searches in its database a similar experience, and when it is found, it is assigned to a corresponding label. A chair, oh yes, a chair, like that million chairs that I have already seen. A man wearing a hat, oh yes, a bad and rude man. If what is assembling is not a repetition of a past experience, there are two possible ways. if it is interpreted as a strong threat to the stability of the inner structures of interpretation and construction of the known, or if it exceeds the boundaries of what is deemed possible, is removed, suspended, or cancelled. If it is not interpreted as a threat or as something impossible, it's amended to make it suitable for a past similar model. A chair is not just a chair. Each chair is a miracle, a molecular dance of light, but the surface mind can never see it, because it simply is not suitable for this purpose. A chair becomes just a chair when the surface mind has interpreted and categorized it as being part of the chair's category, a known and non-threatening object, at least until someone makes the decision to throw it against us. But what has brought surface mind in a role that does not belong to it? We, of course, because we are always the ones deciding. Only we decided in a forced manner and without a fair and informed assessment. We have suffered this decision with the pressure in which we have been experiencing since our birth. The reality interpretation is made so by the surface mind through its inner dialogue. And it is here that the opponents come into action. Typically, the inner dialogue is continuously active and focused on idiotic groupings that remain always on, like a radio. I go to visit my aunt in Nebraska. Nebraska mountains. Beautiful snow in winter. By the way, I should organize the next ski holiday, because it's time. And now I have to buy new skis. Oh yes, that's shop in the downtown. And so on, by idiocy through idiocy, our whole existence. This inconclusive flow, made by many voices, speaking each other's and even fighting amongst themselves, is indeed one of the main instruments of control of our consciousness used by the opponent. This inconclusive flow of inner words is the opponent's voice. That is to say, these many voices that seem to have their own life and that alternate in the domain of our interpretation of reality, this plethora of stimuli, voices, drives, preferences, aversions, are the opponent in its most manifested aspect. One moment, a voice urges us towards a direction. 5 seconds later, we change our mind. 10 seconds later, we see our friend and we are happy. 15 seconds later, we cannot wait to live. The interpretation of reality changes for no reason, just to follow the whims of a swarm of voices in the head. And instead of unifying ourselves even deeper into the inner core that really belongs to us, preserving and making it grow more and more powerful and authoritative, we continue to wander from interpretation to interpretation, believing to be happy or sad or free, just because a voice in the head tells us either happiness, sadness, freedom, and we believe it as puppets pulled by invisible strings. That's why we can say that the opponent has placed under its control the surface mind and uses it to his advantage. It overloads its operation and prevents its quietness, in a way that secures control of the unconscious human being whom is the victim, acting by the thousands of voices which is made. The surface mind is certainly not more powerful than the deep mind, because it would be like saying the right hand is more powerful than the left. Simply, we use the surface mind in a way that is inappropriate, and the deep mind is consequently suppressed by the mechanism of a noisy and uncontrolled overused surface mind. However, we have better to make a point clear. The opponent can do nothing in front of the consciousness. The opponent succeeds in its attempt to put under control the surface mind of a human being because the person does not know what is going on and therefore cannot prevent it. In practice, the opponent takes control of the surface mind typically in the early years of its existence, and with time, the human being arrives quickly to believe what the surface mind tells him, then, essentially, believing to be the opponent itself. How is it possible, then, to get rid of something that is not even known to have? How can it be possible to get rid of something that one believed to be? A scenario that might be terrible to expose, having believed for years to be something that in reality we are not. And this awareness often coincides with the entrance in what many researchers call the night of the soul. Flashes of fear touch our inner field when the structures on which we had built the reality that we thought were so stable, untouchable and eternal, swaying immensely under the pressure of truth. However, there is nothing, really nothing, to fear of. Realizing the tool by which we generally interpret reality, namely the surface mind, does not act under our conscious control, is undoubtedly useful, but there is more. There is another tool related to this way of interpreting the reality the opponent uses to perpetuate its presence in us. A tool that is essential to know, because it is also the instrument that, switched off, triggers and increases the opponent decay as a force of opposition and its transformation into an allied force. Many inner research traditions whisper us this is the main instrument on which the opponent is nourished by our energy, like a parasite. And if this is the main way in which it feeds, what then will happen turning it off? We speak about a very simple automatism created by the body, united with the mind which directs it. The vicious and self-sustaining cycle that triggers between the inner dialogue emotions.